Hey everybody, it's me, Kaylee McCoy the Geek Queen, back at it again with another video. Today's video is going to be a little different. It is going to be pretty much the Chucky movies in a nutshell. I'm going to give you a quick little synopsis. I recommend you go and watch all 7 movies before you watch the TV show. Most likely when you see this video, it's going to be tomorrow on a Tuesday. It's going to be on Tuesday, October 12th. Check your local listings, Syfy and USA if you live in the United States. I don't know what places are showing Chucky in your country if you live in a different country. But anyway, let's get on to it, starting with Child's Play 1. So Child's Play 1, we meet Charles Lee Ray. He's running from the police, and he gets shot. So after he gets shot, he runs into a toy store, realizes that he's dying, and pretty much curses the cop, saying that he's going to get revenge on him and his partner, Eddie Caputo, because Eddie Caputo left him at the scene and didn't even bother to stop. Then it gets interesting. He transfers his soul into a good guy doll using a voodoo spell. And no, this voodoo spell is not actually a real spell, because some people got to be careful not to use real spells in their TV shows or movies, because people will think it's cool and they'll try to do it in real life and end up with some actual real haunted stuff going on in their place, and they don't need that. But yeah, pretty much he does this voodoo spell. He gets transferred into the doll, which is a good guy doll that we all know and love today as Chucky. And then we go to the apartment building of Andy and his mom. It's Andy's birthday, and it's the morning, and he's also making his mom breakfast in bed. Ugh. And also, the reason why I say is because it's a 6-year-old making breakfast. The toast is burnt. That's a lot of sugar in the cereal, dude. I don't know why you put sugar in a cereal that already has sugar in it, but do you, man. And then, he goes and wakes his mom up, asks if he can open his birthday presents. She says yes. He opens them and ends up getting clothes and a little small toy, even though he really wanted a good guy doll. And his mom didn't have enough money to save up for it. Then without further ado, Karen's at work, and her friend Maggie suggests, oh, there's a peddler outside selling it. Maybe we get a deal on it. And Karen's like, oh, I can't leave my post. But then Maggie says, come on, just do it. And then she puts a little sign up, goes outside, and the peddler asks for $50. And then they lower it to $30, and then Karen says deal, but Maggie's like, what? How do we know this isn't stolen? Which, technically, it could be stolen, but whatever. Anyway, moving on. Then we go into the night scene, because Karen's asked to come back into work because of her going to see the peddler. And then Maggie is asked to babysit Andy. That night, Maggie's babysitting. The doll does things like move around in the house, wants to watch the 9 o'clock news. At first, Maggie thinks Andy's doing this, and then, of course, starts getting the heebie-jeebies, realizes that something doesn't seem right. Karen calls to check in. Everything seems fine at first. Then Maggie goes to clean up a mess in the kitchen, stands up. Chucky hits her in the head with a hammer, and she falls through the window and ends up dead. Then the cops come, ask everyone questions, and then, of course, the police officer assumes that Andy is responsible in a way by questioning Karen. Karen is really upset about the situation, asks the cops to leave. Andy starts talking to Chucky again. Chucky is in doll mode, and Karen just thinks that this is all in Andy's head and is a fantasy. And Andy quotes something that Chucky said, saying that Maggie deserved it. And of course, Karen freaks out and thinks that this is just some weird behavior Andy's having, like this is a figment of his imagination. This doll's not alive. The next day, Karen takes Andy to school. Andy ends up leaving school to go take Chucky to Eddie Caputo's house, where he blows it up. Then they end up back at the police station, and pretty much a psychologist ends up saying that Andy is insane, and says that, oh, he's going to stay with us for a few nights, do some tests. Then Karen takes Chucky back to the apartment, where Chucky then eventually comes to life in her arms and runs out so he can go hunt down Andy. Karen tries to tell the cop doesn't believe her, she ends up going to do her own little investigation at Chucky's house and all this other places and stuff. Of course, then we see Andy in the psychiatric hospital, but before that, we see that Chucky goes to see his old mentor who taught him every voodoo spell that he knows. And pretty much, without further ado, he takes a voodoo doll and kills him instantly with it after he tells him that he has to transfer his soul into the only person that he's told his secret to, which was Andy. Again, before that, he attacked the cop, so the cop now knows Chucky's in the doll. But then we eventually get to the hospital. Andy sees Chucky climbing up the fire escape. He screams for the doctor. The doctor says he doesn't see anything, and of course, Andy tricks Chucky and escapes the room and goes into the other room and grabs a scalpel for self-defense. Then the doctor grabs it, and of course, Chucky kills the doctor with the electric shock therapy headband helmet thing. Then by the end of the movie, they're all up in the apartment having a very stern fight. First, they try to burn Chucky, then they shoot Chucky, and then they shoot Chucky again, and then they end up killing Chucky, and all that's left is a charred doll dead on the floor. And that's the end of the first movie. When we go into the second movie, Andy ends up in foster care due to the fact that Andy's mom tries to say in court that Andy's telling the truth. No one believes her, sends her to psychiatric observation for a while, so sends Andy into foster care. Andy gets to live with two people who seem like very nice people and very nice parents, but the dad's not very nice and the mom's like very sweet on him, and meets his foster sister Kyle, who seems very brooding like a moody teenager would, and of course they end up having to live together. Of course, Chucky has killed the assistant who helps the boss of Play Pal's assistant in his car. And it's really sad because it was his anniversary, but he still forgot. He still is kind of a sleazebag, whatever. Then Chucky's now on the hunt looking for him. He calls the center, who says Andy's no longer living there. So he ends up getting the address to where he is. Then, of course, we speed up process. Joanne, who is Andy's foster mother, is telling him a story and singing to him. Chucky ends up hitting the good guy doll that's in the house, whose name is Tommy, and breaking a little statue. The next morning, Phil, who is the foster dad to Andy and Kyle, asks, okay, which one of you broke it? Both of them said they didn't do it, and they both end up grounded. So after that, they're pretty much doing chores around the house, and then, of course, Andy overhears the foster parents thinking he's still not over the fact that he thinks Chucky's alive. So he grabs the doll that is Chucky, and even thinking that it's Tommy. And he checks the battery pack. There's batteries in there, unlike in the first movie where Andy's mom checked and there was no batteries. So then we skip ahead to that night. Andy is tied up in the bed. Kyle had snuck out and sneaks back in the window, tries to untie him. And then, of course, he starts yelling that it's Chucky, and of course Phil gets irritated and throws the doll into the basement, where Chucky realizes he's now turning human again. Then Andy gets sent to school. He gets bullied a little bit. Then, of course, Chucky writes an inappropriate word on Andy's schoolwork and gets Andy in trouble, which gets him in detention. And Chucky's there waiting for him. And, of course, the teacher locks him in the closet. Then Chucky tries to get out of the closet, and Andy ends up escaping out of the window. The teacher comes back, thinks Andy's in the closet, opens the closet, and then gets killed by Chucky. Then we go back to Phil and Joanne's house, and Andy is having a conversation today, and Chucky's doing all this. And then Phil is getting very irritated, opens the door and says, that is Tommy, that's not Chucky. It's your imagination. You're just imagining everything. So then that night, Andy decides it's time to kill Chucky. He grabs one of these knives that is like electro-powered and goes into the basement and tries to kill Chucky. Of course, Chucky's hiding, then messes with him, jumps out of nowhere, attacks him, And then Phil is coming down the stairs and tries to reason with Andy, thinking that Andy is insane and wants to make sure he drops the knife. Then Chucky has this metal hook thing. He uses it, pulls Phil down, and has him hanging upside down. And of course, says, "How's it hanging, Phil?" And let's go. And Phil breaks his neck, dying. Then Joanne and Kyle run down the stairs. Kyle goes to call 911, and Joanne freaks out on Andy, thinking that Andy did this, even though he was like way across the room. Andy gets sent back to the facility where he was, and pretty much Kyle then realizes Chucky's alive and realizes Tommy's buried in the dirt in the backyard. Then goes upstairs, realizes that Joanne is now dead as well. And then Chucky takes Kyle as hostage and tells her that she needs to take him to Andy. Yeah, she gets pulled over by a cop. Chucky's nose bleeds. He said, "Oh, you know that dolls that pee, this one bleeds." And then they go to the foster care facility and pull the fire alarm. Then things get real. Chucky ends up killing Grace Poole, who is the owner of the facility, or the caretaker of the facility. And then they go on this chase all the way through the Playpals factory. Chucky gets, I want to say, split in half, melted, and blown up. Now we're going into Child's Play 3, which takes place in 98. Andy is now 16 years old and going to military school. Chucky was brought back to life because a bit of his blood fell into the batch of good guy doll. I want to say good guy doll, like the material they used to make the flesh and the skin. It gets mixed in, so he's brought back into a new body. He then kills the owner of Playpals and then tracks down Andy at the military academy. He mails himself. Crazy, right? He mails himself to Kent Military Academy, where then Andy meets a whole bunch of new people and meets a love interest, which he never had in the first two, because the first two he was a little boy and now he's 16, so he's a teenager. So by the time the package gets to him, but unfortunately a kid named Tyler opens it and then becomes the new Andy in this story. Pretty much saying that now Chucky wants to transfer his soul into Tyler, and he just wants to kill Andy. So then a whole bunch of people think he's crazy at the military academy up until the point where he then kills the barber, and Andy's roommate realizes, oh shoot, he's telling the truth. But of course he doesn't want to say anything because he's kind of a chicken and doesn't want to say anything. Shelton is the big bully of the group and thinks that Andy is gonna be like his little piece of meat, fresh meat, that he's going to be bullying and attacking. Chucky also scares the man in charge of the military academy, but gives him a heart attack. So he didn't really necessarily touch him or kill him. He just scared him enough to give him a heart attack where he died. He also killed a garbage man. But anyway, we go near to the end of the story. Tyler realizes that Andy was telling the truth, that Chucky was a bad guy, and wants to get away from him as soon as possible. Chucky switched out bullets for their little hunting game, which they use paintballs for, but unfortunately he switched the red team's bullets out with real bullets, and they end up killing Shelton. Then Chucky throws a grenade, and Winehurst, who is Andy's roommate, jumps on the grenade and sacrifices himself. They end up going to a fair, chasing down Chucky. De Silva, who is Andy's love interest, who he kissed earlier in the movie, ends up getting shot, but she's alive and fine. Andy ends up saving Tyler by pushing Chucky into a fan. And then we go to Bride of Chucky, where Tiffany bribes a cop into giving Chucky to her. All that's left is a bunch of ripped up doll parts, but yeah, pretty much. She ends up slicing the throat of the cop, whose name is Officer Bailey. Then she takes Chucky back to the trailer, where she sews him up and tries to resurrect him with the Dembala spell. At first she thinks it doesn't work, and then her friend Damien is at the door and opens it. Also, there's another scene where we meet Jesse and Jade, who are trying to go to prom, but unfortunately Jade's cop uncle will not let her go with him because he believes that her boyfriend is a delinquent. Also, they have a gay best friend who is covering for them, which I think is really cool. So the snitch cop Needlenose ends up pulling him over and does pretty much a alcohol test, even though they have not been drinking, and he thinks it's to be safe and sorry. Unfortunately, Jade gets sent home and is in trouble. Okay, but then pretty much Damien is trying to get into Tiffany's pants. Tiffany doesn't want any of it, and Damien also thinks Chucky is not scary and all that other stuff. Pretty much then Tiffany starts doing her little dance for Damien, who's handcuffed to the bed and has Chucky on his chest. Then of course Chucky kills Damien for saying all this stuff about him and Tiffany, and it just made him mad and jealous. Then we go to let's just say that Tiffany thinks Chucky wants to marry Tiffany thinks Chucky wants to marry her. He doesn't. He wants to just get out of the doll body again. And Tiffany's like, okay, you're a jerk. I'm going to lock you in this playpen. She kind of has a crush on Jesse and has him put Damien in the trunk, even though he doesn't know it's Damien. He thinks it's just stuff going to Goodwill. So by this time, Chucky's mad. Tiffany puts a little bride doll in the playpen with him to make him angry. Then he kills Tiffany by pushing a TV in the bathtub and transferring her soul into the bride doll. She gives the bride doll a makeover, and they end up going on a cross-country road trip to Hackensack, New Jersey to get the heart of Dembala so they can transfer their souls into Jesse and Jade's body. The plan ends up failing when Jesse and Jade find out that Chucky and Tiffany are alive because, of course, Jade's uncle is dead in the car from multiple stab wounds and also nails to his face, looking like a familiar character we all know and love as Pinhead. Also, rest in peace, John Ritter. And rest in peace to the actress who played Damien. Yes, the actress who played Damien was trans. Anyway, pretty much, to make a long story short, Tiffany ends up getting burnt, and getting stabbed, killing her at the gravesite. Then also Chucky is shot and killed and laying in the grave along with his dead body. The cops then clear Jesse and Jade of any of the murders because they pretty much thought they did all these murders. Also, there was a couple at the hotel they were staying at that Tiffany killed with a wine bottle. At the end of Bride, Tiffany gives birth to this demon doll thing that we now know as Glenn and Glenda. Then we go to Seed, where we meet Glenn and Glenda Glenda in the doll body, but going by a different name, which I'm not going to repeat on this channel for reasons. You all know the name. You don't need to hear me say it. Then Chucky and Tiffany aren't alive. They're puppets in Hollywood, and Jennifer Tilly, who is the actress who plays her, is trying to become on top again because, of course, to everyone, she's like a C-list actress. She doesn't have as much popularity as she used to back in the no one takes her seriously anymore. And her fan club is actually her assistant Joan, who's sending her a whole bunch of fan letters. So then all of a sudden, Redman is also in this movie, and Redman is doing a movie about the Virgin Mary, and of course Jennifer Tilly wants the part, which means she would have relations with Redman in order to get that. By this time, Glenn/Glenda has shown up and realized that his parents were killers, and that's why he's been having all those awful nightmares. Or she. Whatever. They, them. Since Don Mancini has confirmed that they are non-binary, but in this movie we really aren't sure what non-binary is because most of us are children back then, so, but now we know, and I'm really glad we do. So the doll pretty much has no genitalia, and Chucky wants to believe that Glenda/Glenn is a boy, and Tiffany wants to believe Glenn/Glenda is a girl. So there's a whole fight throughout the movie about that. Then Tiffany suggests they stop killing to benefit their child. Chucky does not like this and wants to make their child a killer like them. It's like the family business. Chucky ends up killing Britney Spears in the movie. Wasn't a fan of that, but we all know Britney Spears ain't dead. She shall be freed, or she is free. See, I don't even know because I have a whole bunch of people telling me different things and it's confusing. But yeah, free Britney. Moving on. Anyway, Tiffany acts as if she's on a 12-step plan to not be a killer anymore, and she's about to have a slip, and she calls, like, I guess the 12-step program place, and then they tell her Rome wasn't built in a day, slips happen. She ends up killing Redman. And of course, they end up killing a paparazzi person who took pictures of Tiffany and Chucky in the house, knocking out Redman and Jennifer Tilly. By the next day, after they had done their experiment, because they wanted to transfer Glenda's soul into a body, so they got Jennifer Tilly pregnant. The pregnancy is accelerated, and by the next few days, she's about now 9 months pregnant. And then that night she gives birth. Unfortunately, Redman is dead, so they decided to use the limo driver who has a crush on Jennifer Tilly and is like her boyfriend, her secret boyfriend, as Chucky's body. And then Chucky realizes he does not want to transfer his soul. He's happy in a doll body because he doesn't get sick or die or whatever. So he likes it and he wants to stay in the body. However, Tiffany's not cool with this. She wants to be Jennifer Tilly and wants her kid to be happy, so she says that she's leaving Chucky. This makes Chucky mad, and that Chucky ends up killing the limo driver by accident because he jumps in the way protecting Jennifer. At the end of the movie, Jennifer's in the hospital and says she really doesn't care about her career anymore. She only cares about her children. Also, Tiffany ends up transferring her soul into Jennifer Tilly's body, and Glenda transfers their souls into 2 separate bodies, a boy and a girl. Then at the end of the movie, Tiffany kills the nanny by accident, and Chucky sends his son Glenn the severed arm of his dead corpse that Glenn had cut up into pieces, and it ended up jumping and grabbing his throat. We have no idea if Glenn or Glenda are still alive. Now we go to Curse of Chucky. Curse of Chucky, we meet the Pierce family. We meet Sarah Pierce, Nika Pierce, Barbara Pierce, Alice Pierce, and of course, the nanny and the husband of Barbara Pierce, also father of Alice. So pretty much this is the family that caused Chucky to become the doll he is today. In this story, we find out that Sarah had been kidnapped by Charles Lee Ray in the past, and Chucky caused Nika to be handicapped, which means she was paralyzed from the waist down because Chucky stabbed Sarah in the stomach. However, we don't know that throughout the whole movie. We just think this is another random family that Chucky is targeting, and he ends up killing a priest in this movie. He also ends up killing the whole family except for Alice and Nika. Nika gets framed for the murders and ends up going into psychiatric observation because they think she's crazy and had no restraints over what she's done, even though it was Chucky. Also, that's when we find out that Chucky also killed Nika's father, but the first victim he killed in the movie was Nika's mom with a pair of scissors. Now we go on to Cult of Chucky, where we see Nika in the insane asylum and is getting transferred to I think it's called Blackgate. Pretty much, when she gets transferred to the new facility, it's supposed to be no security cameras, a little more privacy. Like, she's getting some of her privileges back. The doctor tells her that the killings weren't real. It was her using Chucky as a cover because of her schizophrenia, even though she doesn't actually have schizophrenia. One of the patients thinks she's insane and doesn't like her. Of course, some of these other patients think that she's getting better and she's well. And of course, we meet these characters like Multiple Malcolm, who has multiple personalities throughout the whole movie, so the movie might confuse you a little bit. Chucky, then we learn that Chucky can transfer his soul into multiple bodies. In this movie, Andy Barclay is present in this movie. Sorry about that, cat jumped on the table. Then we realize that, like I said, Chucky can jump into multiple bodies and pretty much be multiple places at any time. We find out the doctor is a pervert and he should be in prison. However, Chucky transfers his soul into Nika, and Nika then is now Chucky as well. And Chucky's transferred his soul into 3 dolls, which I think one of the dolls ends up getting killed. All the other patients end up getting killed as well, along with the nurse. Multiple Malcolm gets a drill to the head from another Chucky. Andy ends up getting locked in the facility by accident because Nika ends up locking him in there, even though it's not Nika, it's Chucky. Tiffany is also in this movie. Alice is dead by this point because Chucky had transferred his soul into Alice's body previously, and someone ended up defending himself, killing Alice in the process. Then, by the end of the movie, Nika is walking out of the hospital. Well, Chucky, in Nika's bodies, ended up walking out of the hospital, kisses Tiffany, and they drive off. And it's like an homage to Bound, the end of Bound. 2 women driving off. And there's a Tiffany doll in the back seat laughing as well. We don't know if that's going to be in the show or not. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I know this was a long video. I'm sorry this was a 25-minute video. I hope you guys enjoy it. Love you guys. And also, don't forget to watch Chucky on Syfy and USA. Check your local listings, and I will see you guys next time.